By the end of today's episode, you'll know exactly how the casting process works step by step and how to use that knowledge to book more roles. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today I'll be covering the exact casting process and why aligning your headshot, resume, and reel with the breakdown can make or break your chances. I'll also be talking about how a professional self-tape setup can help you stand out from thousands of other submissions, and finally how building relationships with casting directors over time can set you up for future roles. We're going to cover all of this throughout the casting process, how each of these parts relate. So, ready to dive in? So what is the first step in the casting process? Well, step one is that casting directors are going to go to their favorites list of actors. They basically have a database of actors that they trust, they've worked with, they've seen before, and these actors are usually going to get a direct invitation to audition. And typically, these are going to take up about 10 to 20 spots of the available audition slots that they have, right? So they're going to open up a lot of slots for people to submit self-tapes, but usually they're only going to invite 30 or 40, maybe 50 people to callbacks. And these initial actors who they already know about are kind of going to be taking up those initial 10 to 20 spots out of the available 30 to 40 or 50 in some cases. So what does that mean for you? Well, you should ideally aim to build some relationships with casting directors over time. If they know about you, then obviously they're more likely to think about you if you've left a good impression on them in the past. And of course, if you've stayed in touch with them. You're more likely to be on that list of actors that they consider before they even post the casting call online anywhere. Even if you don't book a role, you should treat every audition as a chance to build a relationship with casting directors over time. Or at least you want to make a strong enough impression on the casting director that they're going to ideally, at least after some time, add you to that list of actors that they're regularly considering. Now, after they've chosen these initial actors, they're going to post a breakdown online. So they're going to basically post a description of the role, which includes the physical traits, the personality, sometimes specific skills or accents that are needed. And when you submit or respond to that casting call, your submissions materials should match the breakdown as closely as possible. So, for example, if you don't use a matching headshot or a headshot that sort of makes sense based on the character they're casting for, you're not going to be taken as seriously as another actor who does use something right in line with what they're looking for. They're going to automatically assume that you aren't right for the role because they try not to use too much imagination for the actors who are submitting themselves. And that's why it's really important to tailor your headshot and the clips that you use to fit the role that you're submitting for. So, for example, if you're submitting for a lawyer part, then use a more professional looking headshot, let's say where you're wearing like a suit or a tie, rather than a casual or comedic headshot. Now, the next step is after this initial breakdown is posted online, they're going to start receiving submissions. Okay, so casting offices can sometimes receive thousands, like 3,000, 4,000, even 5,000 submissions per role, especially if it's for a big part. And this is just submissions that will come through agencies often, right? So if a casting director winds up posting a role more publicly on, let's say, Actors Access or casting networks where actors actually have the ability to see the role and submit themselves and they don't need an agent to do it, the casting director might even receive 10,000 or more submissions for a single role. Now, a casting assistant is going to quickly review these submissions. And they're going to, as fast as possible, try to eliminate the ones that don't meet certain basic requirements, like if they're not using a professional headshot, or the profile just looks completely unprofessional, or the person looks way too new, or of course, people who don't match the character's description at all. So obviously, like if they're looking for, let's say, someone who's Asian and you're obviously white, you're going to be eliminated in this step, right? And so because the casting assistant is reviewing so many submissions, it's really important that you make a strong first impression as quickly as possible. For example, again, if you don't use professional headshots, let's say, like your photo is shot by a friend who doesn't really know how to shoot headshots well, the casting assistant will probably assume that you're very new to acting or that you're not willing to invest in your career, or you don't take it seriously, and they're going to eliminate you right away. So you should also make sure, if possible, that your headshot has a slate shot attached to it on Actors Access, and you want to include at least one clip that demonstrates your acting ability, right? If you don't have any clips that show what you can do, you're almost certainly going to be eliminated right off the bat. Ideally, that clip should also align with the character type that you're submitting for. Again, professional lawyer, so you should be doing a scene or a monologue or something that's somewhat in alignment with that, right? Don't just randomly submit a comedic monologue that doesn't make any sense for the character. So again, at a bare minimum, you absolutely need to include some sort of clip, because submissions that do not have any clip are almost always eliminated immediately. The casting assistant's job is to narrow the pool down to the top 100 or 200 submissions. So once they determine that your headshot suggests you could fit the role, they're going to probably spend a little bit of time reviewing your resume and your reel or your clips. They might also check your website or cover letter or submissions note if you included one. And their goal here is to just do whatever they can to quickly narrow the field down to just the people that they want to invite to submit a self-tape. Again, this being around 100 to 200 people in most cases. Since you're not actively auditioning yet, their decision is based entirely on what you've submitted from your profile, right? So your clips and your acting ability and your headshot. So this is why it's so important to select the right clips. And if you have a demo reel, like a full-length reel, you want to make sure that it's not too long. You want them to click play and see your best moments immediately and be impressed enough to invite you to submit a self-tape. Now, at this point, they've narrowed it down to the actors that they're going to invite to submit self-tapes. So at that point, you're going to receive some script sides along with a character breakdown. You're going to use this information to prepare for your self-tape recording, and it's in your best interest to record your self-tape professionally and use a proper setup. And you want to also submit it as quickly as possible, right? So being one of the first people to submit actually increases your chances of being seen. The thing is, if you submit closer to the deadline, meaning you're one of the last to submit, casting directors might not even watch your tape because in many cases, they already make their decision on who's going to get callbacks within the first couple of days. And that's really a fact. I'm going to do a podcast episode coming up on the importance of submitting quickly. Now, once all of the self-tapes are submitted, casting directors are going to review them. And they're going to narrow the list down further to invite certain actors back for what's called callbacks. Callbacks are essentially a second round of auditions that are oftentimes attended by more than just the casting director, right? So directors, producers, sometimes even network executives or executive producers are going to weigh in on the decision, depending on the size of the role. And during the callback process, you're going to receive specific notes from the casting director on how they want to see the performance, right? Sometimes callbacks take place in person, sometimes they're done online, but you're usually going to get certain notes. So you want to take those directions seriously and apply them as best you can. Now, at this point, some productions have a second or even third round of callbacks, again, depending on how big the role is, but you're going to find out whether you've booked the role or haven't. But the fact is that if you do get a callback And even if you don't book the role, it's a very good sign. Usually that indicates that there might be future opportunities coming your way as long as you continue to perform strongly in future auditions, right? Because casting directors will often keep actors in mind for future projects if they like their audition. You might wind up seeing that you're getting invited back for other roles from the same production by the same casting director. And that's a very good sign that you're on the right track and your acting is getting much stronger. So at the end of the day, the casting process has a lot of steps, but there are some key ways to improve your chances of booking a role, or again, at least getting a callback. You want to match the breakdown as closely as possible by using the right headshots and clips. You want to use a professional self-tape setup, and you want to make strong choices in your performances. Finally, remember that not booking a role but consistently auditioning for the same project or the same casting director is a really good sign that you're on the path towards booking something with them in the near future. Well, thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on how to audition well, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called Unlocking the Secret to Memorable Performances and More Acting Auditions, Mastering the Likability Factor, which is episode number 112. You're going to learn a lot and have a much better understanding of what casting directors often want in the actors that they choose for bigger roles. Again, it's episode number 112, Unlocking the Secret to Memorable Performances Using the Likability Factor, on the Actor's Career Compass. Finally, if you'd like to get some personalized advice, let's hop on a quick Zoom call. Take a look at where you are, what you're struggling with, and help you figure out the best next steps to take. We can see if any of my one-on-one coaching programs might be a good fit for you. Whenever you're ready, you can visit martinbenson.com and you can join the coaching waitlist there. Love to meet with you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.